Now, dominating news headlines, the Transnet strike is said to be far from over after the union SATAO refused to settle for the 11% wage increase. Now, just 3 weeks ahead of the World Cup, the different unions say this is the season for strikes in the country. Over the weekend, Soweto celebrated the official opening of Soccer City Stadium. To engage us on what made newspaper headlines over the weekend, we're joined by Vareshni Pillay, Mail and Guardian Online Managing Editor. Vareshni, thanks so much for joining us. I think the biggest one in the Mail and Guardian on Friday, Sicelo Shiteka, the Minister of Traditional Affairs and Cooperative Governance, said to have a bogus CV. Where did you get that?
Well, this is the great thing about the reporters at the Mail and Guardian. They've cultivated a number of sources within, various departments. And several secret sources told our senior reporter, Manaledi, about this. And, a recurring theme in the article is that they call him a bit of a dictator. So they're obviously afraid to bring these things up in the department. So they go to the newspapers, they use those avenues open to them to kind of make their voice heard. And, it's not just the bogus CV. That's the one big thing. There's a whole bunch of other allegations. A party thrown allegedly by the department, but for his mother's birthday party. His girlfriend using a third state car when ministers are only allocated 2 cars. And about 58 financial irregularities that have come to light to the Mail and Guardian that have been leaked to us, that the department seems to have dealt with in a very strange way, very closed way, not really address these irregularities.
And any response so far? I'm sure their spin doctors would have been spinning on their heads.
People get a bit depressed about how often we expose corruption, but I think it's great because it forces them to react. So, for instance, our reporter called and said, you say that he has a master's in political economy from the University of Free State. The University of Free State says he's not even registered. He didn't complete his studies. And they said, well, he has a few more modules to complete. And again, UFS says no such thing. He's not even registered. So subsequently, his CV was amended on the website to say current studies. So that was kind of their reaction, to kind of spin that a little bit. And on the various other allegations, they said they're going to return the car. So I think the fact that papers like the Mail and Guardian push these issions forces departments like that to react to it. And we'll see more reaction
and
coming.
keeping them on their toes.
Exactly.
Okay, you're also leading with the 2010 focus on Cape Town last week.
We're doing a 3-city tour, which is quite nice. We did Durban the week before, and now it was Cape Town. So what we're doing, it's a video tour as well. So if you go online, mng.co.za/3city, the number 3, you'll see videos as well and a whole host of multimedia. So we started with Durban, now Cape Town, but we don't just look at lifestyle. We do where to eat, where to party, where to stay, but we also look at investigative things about the city, as is our tradition. So this week was a really lovely piece by Narian Tulsi on the 2 stadiums and how there's this rich history of non-racialism and political activism in Athlone, which is a city in Cape Town that's being a little bit ignored in the World Cup, and just bringing that to light. And it's a really lovely piece.
Yeah, and we're talking about that unification. I mean, our draw card is always about the humility. Come and celebrate our Ubuntu and our kindness, etc. Soccer City was also indicative of that. Even with the rugby being taken to Orlando Stadium, I mean, 100,000 sports lovers going there, different colours, creeds, religions, and the only concern was really about South Africa to shine, or the unification thereof.
Exactly. I know I've seen people on sort of Twitter calling it 95 version 2. That was the kind of spirit around. And I know you were there, and I heard it was just an incredible atmosphere.
It was totally amazing. I just get goosebumps thinking about that. So it was officially opened by President Jacob Zuma, and now we know that whatever lessons that they need to learn, especially with dealing with the traffic congestion. But I want to go to another point that maybe highlights the intolerance or the ill ease that we have in reflecting on our own expressions. Zapiro and the cartoon referring to Prophet Muhammad.
In fact, I'm glad you brought up this Sicelo story, because our newspaper just got taken over by that cartoon. The whole of Friday I spent replying to angry people across the country about this cartoon. But I think it was a great example of how democracy is working in South Africa. Because what happened was there was this Facebook group called Draw Muhammad Day. And it was a global movement in reaction to a South Park episode that depicted the Prophet, which you shouldn't do in Islam. So Zapiro, I think, was the first South African expression of this global movement to everyone draw Prophet Muhammad. And he did quite a gentle cartoon. It depicts the Prophet reclining on a psychiatrist's couch saying other Prophet's followers have a sense of humor. So, of course, there was a huge outrage around this. I don't think the paper expected the outrage. We were gone to distribution on Thursday night, and Nick Dawes, the editor, gets a call from the Muslim Theologians Council asking him to pull the paper. He said, we can't do that because it's in distribution, but I wouldn't anyway. And so they took him off to court, tried to get an interdict. The judge, who happens to be Muslim, threw the case out and said, no, it has to go ahead. It was on technical grounds because the council failed to bring founding papers. But nonetheless, we fiercely defended Zapiro's right to freedom of expression. And we didn't
Was it offensive, though, you think?
You know, I do think that he was very careful. Zapiro is notorious for his sharp intellect and he can
yes,
cutting, very
yes.
cutting. He's exposed hypocrisy everywhere, and he was quite Nick Dawes called it a gentle and irreverent poke at the entire, kind of situation around the Straw Mohammed Day. So I'm not sure if it was offensive, and I feel that democracy worked. They took now Nick Dawes is going to engage with Muslim leaders and have some more discussion around this. People are writing us letters, that's fine, they're expressing themselves. And they took us to court, the court ran its course, and I think it's actually been a great exercise in discussion and debate.
All right, and onto the political front as well. Service delivery, always a sticky issue. We see it now with the strikes as well, wage negotiations. President Jacob Zuma was in Balfour over the weekend. He was allegedly booed because the residents there are now impatient. The talks were around Balfour being incorporated into Gauteng because they're saying in Mpumalanga service delivery are lacking or non-existent at that. Is this an indication that there is tremendous frustration and also lack of confidence in the presidency?
We are seeing that that Jacob Zuma's presidency is coming under a little bit of a strain and attack lately, especially with things like this. And I mean, we can't ignore this grassroots kind of rising frustration. And I think that's part of the reason that they're trying to get serious about lack of delivery and lack of and corruption, lack of accountability. And we're seeing this. I believe it was The Citizen that's done an article about this kind of new inspector unit that's going to be released on housing in this country to kind of just alleviate that housing backlog. And I think it's pretty exciting. They're planning on training something like 400 housing inspectors to help government meet the target of 600 houses in the next 3 years. And I mean, they said that they spent about 2 billion trying to fix RDP houses in the past few years. So I think it's kind of like, let's spend the money up front and do it properly instead of going back. Because I mean, I went and I saw those so-called flagship houses on the N2 in Cape Town, and some of them were just falling apart, and it's actually just embarrassing. So I think to do it properly first time round and not have to go back would be great.
Yeah, no, at least especially now with the World Cup
of course.
firmly on our doorstep.
And to know that the poor are being taken care of. It's not just shiny stadiums, that cost many billions, but that they're serious about delivery. So to prevent these protests from happening.
Yeah, Vareshni, always good to have you. Thanks so much
to be here.
For your insight. We're speaking to Vareshni Pillay, Mail and Guardian online editor, about what made newspaper headlines across our papers over the weekend. If you have any thoughts on that, sunrise@etv.co.za, or you can become a fan on our Facebook page, or you can tweet as well. We take a quick ad break. We'll see you then.